Hey, welcome back. So, property number 7. Okay, property number 7. This was super exciting for me. This was my first time getting a property with all cash. I know, crazy, right? So, let me give you some background. Of course, up to this point, I've been investing in real estate with loans, so getting a mortgage on the property, which is great. I mean, using other people's money, really helps out. But I wanted to know, what is it like to just come to the closing table, all cash? What does that look like to have a property and not have a mortgage payment? And, I just wanted to experience it. So I was like, okay, what market could I actually buy in, make it work, and still profit? You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to give up too much of my cash. And that's why a lot of people say use other people's money, because let's say you're going to put $100,000 into a property. Now that $100,000 could have been used for something else. And so a lot of it is like, all right, I can use other people's money to grow my real estate instead of using it to put as a down payment when I could, just get a loan, or just using it to buy all cash. So I had some money saved and I was thinking about buying in Ohio. So I was already looking in Cleveland. I had taken a couple of trips to Cleveland and I liked what I saw, but it felt like, I don't know, I guess I had a little bit of confusion. So I paid these ladies to teach me about the Cleveland market, and they were essentially like, anything past this certain zip code, anything past this side of the freeway, you want to stay away from, and then everything on this side of the freeway is good, And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then I talked to someone else who's also from Cleveland, and she was saying, actually, that's not true, because one of the things they said was that contractors won't even go to some of those zip codes. And this other lady I talked to who's from Cleveland was like, that's not true. Contractors will go to different places. It just depends on who you're working with. And she also said it's not true in terms of not buying in across this side of the freeway. And I was like, okay, well, that's confusing. And I went there myself, and I could see why they said that, stay away from some of these neighborhoods and stuff. But my thing is people need housing everywhere. But I get where they're coming from in terms of, more crime, more break-ins, and just all that eating into your ROI, your time. And it's do you want to deal with all that? So I was being very cautious about Cleveland, and I was looking at tax deed auction properties, looking at foreclosure properties, but also just looking at the market. So I have a real estate agent out there. He showed me around, excellent, saw a lot of things. He also provided a lot of education. So I was ready to make this cash purchase and looking in Cleveland, but then I was, at the time I was engaged. No, I wasn't. I was just dating. Okay, so he was my boyfriend at the time. He had family in a town not far from Cleveland called Toledo. Now, my only other familiarity with Toledo was that one of my family members went to college in Ohio and had mentioned the town of Toledo because someone she was dating at the time was from Toledo. And I just remember being like, I've never heard of Toledo. Where even is that? And so that was my only reference to Toledo. And so when he said that he had family in Toledo, I was like, oh, that's random. So anyway, we ended up visiting his family there and stuff, and that was really cool. So that was my first exposure to Toledo, which was about 2.5 hours from Cleveland. And then I realized you can actually get to Toledo through Detroit because it's only 45 minutes away. So what we did, we flew into Detroit for a real estate event with this group called the Monopoly Brothers. It was a networking event, a lot of fun. And we went to Detroit because at the time he was looking at investing in Detroit. I was not interested in Detroit. I had heard crazy things, but there were possibly some really good land bank opportunities, like properties for $500, stuff like that. And so he was like, yeah, let me look at Detroit. And he had already started building a team out there. Him and his friend were looking. And so we flew out, went to that event, met some great people. They confirmed the amount of opportunities in Detroit, which was really cool. And we got to take a look around, but they also confirmed some of the challenges. And I was like, yeah, I'm good on this. So we were in Detroit, and then we decided to get a car and we drove down to Toledo to visit his family. And that's when I realized how close it was. I was like, oh, wow, this is like very close. 45 minutes. Like, I mean, it could be even faster if you are right at the speed limit, So saw Toledo. There's literally nothing in Toledo. Like, I'm talking about, there's a zoo, and then, there's movie theaters, but like, it's not like a Cleveland or Detroit or LA, not at all. There's not really anything to do there. However, people live everywhere, right? And people need housing everywhere. So when I was there, I was taking a look at things, and I was like, okay. And then I started looking at the prices. I said, wait a minute, these prices are crazy. And what really intrigued me, and I don't know when this happened on the timeline, but I saw a property on the land bank for Lucas County, which is where Toledo is, for, what was it? It was like $2,888, like very specific number. And I was like, this was on Zillow. And I was reading the description, and the description redirected you to the land bank. And I was like, what is this land bank situation? So I started doing some research, and I was like, oh my gosh, like maybe I need to be buying properties from the land bank. So there were all these stipulations about what requirements you have to meet if you buy a property from the land bank. And one of them was you have to rehab the property within a certain time frame. And then if you don't, you pretty much forfeit your interest in the property. And you don't actually get the deed to the property until you finish the renovations. And I was just like, ooh, that's crazy. But the properties are so cheap. And then another thing is they tend to be in these really rough neighborhoods. So the one I was looking at that was less than $3,000 was in what was supposedly a terrible neighborhood. And I was like, okay, interesting, very good to know. And when I went to go look at it, there were a lot of abandoned houses. And so for me, I was like, ooh, okay, now you have to get into where is this market going? Because if for some reason there's about to be a lot of development or something, or maybe some big conglomerate is about to establish roots in Toledo near that space, it may make sense. But if there's not much going on and there's all these abandoned houses and stuff on the block, I can't really justify making that investment, right? So I was like, okay, maybe not the specific land bank ones. But another thing is I didn't even qualify for the land bank because you had to be a Toledo resident or a Lucas County resident. And if you were not, like let's say you were a company or a non-resident purchasing, you had to have already owned property in Lucas County for a year before you could even buy a land bank property. And I was like, crazy. That's how they got me. So I wasn't even qualified to get a land bank property. Nonetheless, I kept looking, and I was like, well, I can own a property for a year and then qualify for land bank, and that would give me time to explore this market, see what it's like, etc. But I was seeing properties for, we already started at less than 3,000, but even just turnkey properties, I was seeing at less than 100,000. And I was like, this is interesting. Like, how much do people make around here? Anyway, I had so many questions. So I didn't end up buying anything on that trip, but we actually left Toledo and then went down to Cleveland and did some more exploration there, met up with some more real estate people. It was actually a really great trip. The only bad thing though, is while we were on our way to Cleveland, our Turo car got stolen. I know, so random. We were in the car on the freeway, and I got an alert from OnStar saying that my anti-brake lock or something had been tampered with. I don't know what it was. And I was just like, what? Because I remember I left the car parked outside of my house. And so I was just like, maybe my roommate is moving it. I don't know. Because I did ask her to move it. So maybe like she just, mess with something. So I just didn't really pay much attention to it. And then shortly after that, I got a couple more alerts. And I was like, oh, that's really odd. And then not too long after that, my roommate actually contacted me and said, I came outside to find the car and it's nowhere to be found. Like, I don't see it. Is it around the corner? And I was like, no, it's like right outside, like in the front. And she was like, I don't see the car. And I was just like, wait, what? So she keeps looking and she's like, wait, it looks like this, right? She was like, wait, I do see some broken glass here. And I said, oh no. So yeah, anyway, that's how I found out the car was stolen. So the whole time we were in Cleveland, I was dealing with this stolen car claim and trying to cancel upcoming bookings on Turo and trying to deal with the insurance company and trying to figure out where the car was because it had GPS. And so I saw that it had been taken to Long Beach. And then I was even able to use some technologies to find an exact address where it was parked and like all this stuff. I was just investigating. Anyway, that happened, but did not end up buying property at that time. But I did get connected with a real estate agent, and that real estate agent connected me with a contractor. So anyway, come back home, whatever, time passes. This real estate agent reaches out and says like, okay, what are the criteria for what you're looking for? And I was like, well, yes, I would like to rehab something, but I'm also open to turnkey. And I told her my budget. I was like, given what I've been seeing in the market, I mean, my budget for a building that is more than 2 units is $100,000. My budget for under 2 units, so 2 units and under, is going to be under 60,000 or whatever it is that I told her. And she was like, okay, I could like really work with that, blah, blah. I was like, that's for turnkey though, but preferably like I'm looking for something even less. So like if it's less than 2 units or 2 units or less, I'm looking at like 40,000 or less. If it's more than 2 units, I really would like to stick to no more than 80, even 60,000, because I want to leave space for the rehab. And she was like, okay, yeah, I can still work with that. So time passes, whatever, and she starts sending me properties. So she sends me this duplex that was involved in a fire. And I was like, huh, what kind of fire? And it was some sort of electrical fire in the downstairs unit, but most of the damage was in the upstairs unit. And she said that an investor purchased it and started doing the renovations, but ran out of money. So basically they gutted it, started cleaning stuff out, or no, they didn't clean it. They gutted it, at least one of the units, and they, I guess, ran out of money and gave up. And I was like, oh, interesting. And so asking her to like send me pictures or whatever, she sent me videos, pictures. Honestly, she was not great at sending pictures and videos. So of course I've worked with real estate agents before and I'm used to just them being pretty thorough and excellent in what they're sending, because I mean, I'm in a whole other state. So I really need quality photos and videos to assess the situation, but she was not great at that. But she did her best, I guess. So I was looking at it and I was like, this is interesting. I asked her if she could meet with the contractor to let him in so he can take a look, give me a call and give me a quote. So the contractor goes in and he's like, I can fix this up for like, how much did he say? I think he said like 21,000 or 30,000 or something like that. And I was like, really? Like, I'm talking about, this place was a mess. Like, it was a mess. And I was like, 30,000. So the list price, I think they were trying to sell it for 20 something thousand. And I was like, wow, the fact that there's even real estate out here for sale for 20,000 is nuts. Like, I mean, on the market, not like a land bank, just for sale. And I was just like, what's wrong with it? And so I was asking the contractor, he was like, honestly, it's just the fire damage. Like, they probably just don't want to deal with all that. And so I was like, all right, well, I'll take it. So I tell the real estate agent, let's put in an offer. I was like, I'll offer 18,000, I think is what I said. And she was like, no, I think I offered 15. I think I offered 15. And then the seller came back insulted or something and was like, can you do asking? And I was like, no, I mean, it's pretty damaged and trashed. Like, I'm gonna have to do a lot of work. And they were like, what about 18? No, I think I said, what about 18? And they were like, what about 20? And I was like, okay, I'll do 20. So I ended up getting the property for 20,000. And this is where my mind was blown. Okay, so you know how when you buy a property with a mortgage and there's all this paperwork, oh my gosh, like so much paperwork. I mean, you are sending in your tax returns, your ID, your pay stubs, and if you're buying an entity, you're sending in your operating agreement, your company documents, and it's a lot of paperwork. And then don't let it be a loan. Like with the loan, you're dealing with title, you're dealing with the lender and all their requirements. And then you're in underwriting, and underwriting wants the craziest things for no reason, seemingly. And it's a long process, and it could take 30 to 45 days. I mean, I've closed, the fastest I've closed with a loan was like 21 days. But even that, like, it's a lot of paperwork, right? And the more organized you are, the faster you can close. And of course, the better the underwriter and the team is, the faster you can close. But this cash situation, honestly, I was so confused, and it was so unfamiliar to me that I almost thought it was fraud. Like, I was like, wait, it's just not right. So we get the title company, and it's like, okay, on a Friday, I think I put in an offer. Literally by the next Thursday, I think, or Friday, we had closed. And it was just so much less paperwork. Because I mean, most of the things that you're signing are loan documents. I mean, I did have to sign some stuff for title, but that was easy. It's mostly loan documents that you're signing. So with all that taken out, I mean, the process goes much smoother. And I had to wire my funds, didn't have to meet with a notary or nothing. I said, yo, this is what I like. Okay. I like this cash purchase situation. So anyway, bought that property and had the contractor immediately get started on work. Now, the bad thing though is I bought this in December, and in Ohio in December, it's freezing, right? So it was snowing. So the contractor's like, okay, there's only a few things I can do given the weather, so I have to push it back. So he ended up not really starting until like later that month, I think, or even in January. But the crazy part is I was so unbothered. And you know why? Because I didn't have a mortgage payment. Like, I wasn't in a rush. And I just love that. I love that feeling of just being like, okay, it's delayed. No problem. Take your time. I'm chilling. Like, it was just amazing. And I mean, it's still amazing. I still don't have a mortgage on that property. But yeah, just that whole process of acquiring it with cash only, and the closing just so smooth, and then working with a contractor. So this BRRRR method, like, I'm really into, especially if there's no loan involved. I really like this. And so I do understand the value of using other people's money, but just the reduced stress and the fact that I don't have this crazy deadline that I'm trying to meet because I have to refinance by a certain time. I mean, that I think is just a beautiful thing. Now, what I will say, do not tell your contractor that you don't have a mortgage. I think that one mistake that I made is telling my contractor that I'm not in a rush. You know, I don't have a mortgage. I can take my time. And then I think that did not create a sense of urgency on his part. And so when he can, you know, he feels like there's no issue with a delay either, but I don't want him to feel like that. I want him to hurry up. And so I think that's one mistake that I did make is, you know, telling my contractor too much about the situation and just saying like, I don't have a loan. I'm not saying you should lie, but I mean, they don't necessarily need to know that you bought it cash and that you can take your time. So that's one thing. Another thing I would say is, one thing that I wish I had done differently is basically have maybe a project manager on the ground. So I did this with my property in Illinois. I actually had a project manager, but with this one I didn't. And I don't know, I guess I was just trying to like keep costs low, but I also just wasn't as in a hurry. So I think I need to put a system in place to also make myself create a sense of urgency, because even with this now, like, we are just now finishing the upper unit, and I'm talking about, I bought this in the end of 2023. It's 2025, like the year's almost halfway over. So like that, it's taken a long time, and I think that it didn't need to take that long. It really didn't need to take that long. And I mean, some things happen, like the contractor tore his ACL and all these things. I mean, that was later in the process, but this should have been done a while ago. And another thing is, you get what you pay for, right? So this contractor that I hired gave me like a great price for all the things that he was doing. But the reason he was able to give me such a great price is because he has like no overhead. And it's because he pretty much does everything himself, and then he hires ad hoc. Like if he's now in a rush, he will hire like day workers to get things done for him and like be on his team, but he doesn't have a regular team that he pays. And I think that's interesting. So that's why he was able to give me such a great price. But of course, with that great price comes time delays, comes like unofficial processes, if you will, and just a general lack of urgency is what I'll say. Because at some points in the project, he went and took other jobs like temporarily, and then came back to my project. And it's just like, would you do that for other people, you know, with a different type of client? I don't know. If they told you that time is of the essence, would you go and take another job? I'm not sure. But those are some of the things that I would have changed if I could go back. But the property is, I mean, it's in motion. The upper unit is almost done. And I forgot to tell you, so it's, the 2 units are 3-bed, 1-bathroom each. And the plan is to rent them out for about $1,000 to $1,100 each. And in terms of the loan, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to refinance it or if I'm just going to enjoy the rents. I'm not sure. We will circle back on that at a later time once the whole unit is done. I mean, the whole building is done and we have tenants in there, and I'll give you an update on everything that's happened, including, you know, property management and what other structures I put in place. But for now, I'm just thinking maybe I don't want a property. I mean, maybe I don't want a mortgage on the property. So we'll see. But yeah, that was my first cash purchase and I love it. And I want to do it again. And actually, I did do it again. So my purchase right after that was also a cash purchase. So stay tuned for that video. It'll come out later. But yeah, I like the OPM, but I'm also really into this cash situation. So let me know what you